So let's go ahead and just. Thank you. So we're gonna jump right in. Good morning, everybody. It is May 13th, and this is the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency Finance Committee meeting. We are kicking things off at 8:32 a.m. We'll call this meeting to order. And our first item, as always, is approval of the agenda. Do you have a motion?
Madam Chair, move for approval of the agenda as presented.
Perfect. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All right, motion by Randy, second by Greg. Any discussion on the agenda? All right, all in favor of approving the agenda as presented, say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Agenda is approved. Next item is the approval of the meeting minutes. Do we have a motion on this?
I'll move to approve.
All right. You
Okay.
agree? All right, motion and a second. I hope everyone had a chance to review the minutes. Is there any discussion on this item? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes unanimously. Next item is unfinished business, and we have a third quarter update, and I'll pass this over to Tyson.
Hi, going to go ahead and share my screen here. So we presented unreconciled statements last meeting. And today we are presenting the reconciled statements. So just give me a sec. I'm juggling multiple things here. Cool. Let's see if I can. Okay. Gonna go ahead and start off here. Presenting to the Finance Committee are the reconciled Q3 financial statements for fiscal year 2026. The only revisions from the unreconciled statements presented last month are an increase in the Title V revenue and an increase to the interest income. So those are the only differences we saw there, and they moved up. Together, these revisions increased revenue by $32,923, resulting in a year-to-date net gain of $180,357 to our fund balance. As of the end of Q3, our fixed fee revenue for fiscal year 26 has been largely received and accounted for. This includes assessment revenue, annual registration revenue, and Title V revenue. These three revenue sources alone make up 60% of our overall revenue collected to date. Looking ahead, I'm expecting an influx of quarterly grant revenue, which approximates $312,000 in revenue. Some things of note. Penalty and interest revenue continues to surpass its anticipated budget. Year-to-date penalty revenue is up 173% above its planned annual budget, and interest income is up 21% past its planned annual budget. Payroll expenditures remain within the anticipated utilization rate, so we're still sitting at that 72%, which hasn't changed from the statements presented last month. Non-payroll building operations and program operations also remain within the acceptable utilization rates. However, a reassessment of the building operation maintenance budget will be needed once we have paid the invoice for the roof replacement, which has come in at $92,000, which also includes retainage. In summary, the positive net balance as of the end of Q3 will help carry us through the final quarter of fiscal year 26. I'm pleased to report that April, so the end of last month, also posted a net gain of $65,000, which brings our year-to-date as of the end of April to $245,000. Taken together with our expected quarterly grant revenue, I'm hoping any year-end deficit will be largely offset by our positive net position as of the end of March and April. So that's it. So we're looking good.
All right. That's awesome. Great. Thanks, Tyson. Do you have anything to add, Jeff?
No,
Okay.
just, yeah, no, thanks Tyson, and yeah, things are looking good.
Perfect. Thank you so much for the presentation. I will open it up for discussion. Do we have any questions for Tyson? All right, well, that's easy peasy then. Thank you, Tyson. Sounds like we're in a good spot, so we will move on to our next, actually, I do have one comment to make. If possible, I think one thing that would help me when we are reviewing budget spreadsheets, since it can be really hard for me to find the numbers that we're talking about with so many numbers in front of me, it would be really helpful if we could maybe just highlight the lines that we should be looking at when you're talking, so that as we go through, I can kind of follow along. And yeah, I think that would be helpful. All right, so we can move on to the next item, which is our fiscal year 27 draft budget. And I believe this is also Tyson.
Actually, I'll start off just, so last month, we had some good discussion about the draft budget. We weren't gonna talk much more about that today at this committee meeting, but the committee did ask a few questions, last month. And so Tyson's put together a couple slides kind of addressing some of those questions. So I wanted to show that and talk about that now. So essentially, yeah, so we're not going to be talking so much about the draft budget, which will be presented to the full board at the next meeting, but really just following up with some of the committee's questions and some of the discussion we had last month.
Okay. Bear with me, folks. I'm gonna try to do this again. Okay. So I'll be showing two slides in this presentation pretty quick. These slides will we'll be answering questions posed by the committee regarding what the average cost of an ORCAA employee is and the rise in agency costs in relation to CPI. So this first slide addresses the question, how much does an ORCAA employee cost? So taking the unweighted average for salaries and benefits from FY 23 to April 2026 yields an average cost of $101,941 and $31,330 respectively. Average salaries were determined by discounting any terminal leave buyout and dividing the total yearly salaries by the average number of employees for the year. When determining the average number of employees per year, part-time employees were accounted for as a quarter FTE only. Benefit costs were calculated as a rate, which was then applied against the average salaries. The benefit rate was determined by taking the total yearly benefit cost over the total yearly salaries. And this yielded an average benefit rate of 31%. Comparing ORCAA's wage and benefit costs to its peers, ORCAA actually falls slightly below industry standards. So per ZipRecruiter, as of May 4th, 2026, the nationwide average for local government pay was $112,547 per year, while the state of Washington local government pay was on average $127,470. Also, according to a December 2025 Bureau of Labor Statistics report, state and local governments on average maintain a 38% benefit rate, while ORCAA has an unweighted average of 31%. So that's what the information is presented here on this slide.
So Randy, I think it was you that asked that question. Hopefully that answers, and I don't know if you have.
That does answer mine. Bear in mind, let me tell you why I need this. Whenever I'm looking at budgets, I need to have a number that I can put into blocks. I do $200 million budgets by doing everything in blocks. And if I have a number like this, then I know if there's a problem, what it takes to fix it. I know how much room we have before we have a problem. So I very much appreciate you taking the time to put this together. And now I'll have this locked in my brain. Hopefully others could use it too, and it's not just for me, but we'll see.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the information and thank you, Randy, for the questions. I think this information is definitely helpful for me too, especially as being the new chair of the finance committee. These pieces of information are really helpful for me just to add context to the work that we're doing and what it costs to do that work. So thank you.
Yeah.
I don't
thanks,
know that I've
Senator.
ever had it before. In all the years I've been here, I don't think I've ever actually had it broke down like this for me, like I needed. Thank you.
Nice work, Tyson.
Yeah, thanks, Tyson. I see your hand, Mike. Go ahead.
And I would add this, I mean, to me is pretty good. I think that, from coming from Clallam County, I don't think our numbers are going to be that much different, except for benefits, maybe. So it looks like we've done a pretty good job of controlling our benefit cost. It's not like rising uncontrollably. Yeah, so I guess from a Thurston County perspective, do these numbers seem unusually low for an average cost of an employee? They
I
seem
would
pretty
say,
normal.
yeah, I haven't done that analysis for Thurston County. I will say that the average for Washington is higher because of everything north of us.
Yes.
So including Pierce County, Snohomish County, King County really pulls that average up. But my gut is that I think we are competitive. We are within that range here in Thurston County. So, yeah.
I'll also say that average salary cost is not rising faster than it seems would be reasonable. It seems like that's a pretty normal trajectory that it's going on.
Go ahead, Randy.
So it's a little higher than what I do in Mason County, but we're not talking Mason County. So I literally I can go in and think of mine and average across the board at all-in cost of about 120 to 125 on the upper end. But again, we're not talking about Mason County, and I recognize that. So this is definitely not far out of line with how I see the numbers at home.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, I'm gonna move on to the second slide here. Okay. All right, so a lot more numbers on this slide. So this slide presents a table which shows the rise in agency costs over time in relation to the actual and board approved CPI. So just as a side note, total percentage increases shown in the total column, second from the right, were compounded when determining the total percentage change. From FY 2021 to FY 2025 and excluding leave buyout, we saw a 31.7% increase in salaries. When including benefit costs, we saw an increase in overall payroll of 29.4%. For all expenditures, including all other operational costs increased by 27.6%, including leave buyout, and an increase of 26.4% when excluding leave buyout.
I think if you want to use your pointer just to kind of point out some of the numbers that.
I cannot do
Okay,
that.
so, all right, here, you can use that.
Okay, oh geez, I feel like I'm looking and doing at the same time here. So just going back, so from FY 2021 to FY 2025, and excluding leave buyout, we saw a 31.7% increase, and you can see it's highlighted with these gray lines here, which is not showing up the best on the slide. When including benefit costs, we saw an increase in overall payroll of 29.4%. So that's this line right here. And then for all expenditures, including all other operational costs, costs increased by 27.6%. So this box down here and this line specifically. And that includes leave buyout. So excluding leave buyout, costs include, pay, all costs increased by 26.4%. During this time segment, our approved salary adjustment totaled 15.2%, which is this box down here and this cell right here.
And let me just add, so in addition to, I mean, that was the board approved, not just salary adjustment, but fee and assessment increases. So that's the across the board increases there, right?
Correct.
So I can't see when he's saying down here, down there, because I don't see a,
You don't see the pointer?
Yes.
no. I'm like, okay. All right.
And the official CPI index for this period was 23.6% or 5.9% per year. So Randy, I'll repeat it. So what we're talking about is the last box, the very bottom. It has both the board approved CPI increases, and then it actually has the official CPI increases for the year. So for the time segment of FY 2021 to FY 2025, the board approved salary adjustment totaled 15.2%. So when you compound all of the salary COLA adjustments for that time segment, it totals 15.2%. And then when you compound the total CPI increases using the official CPI numbers, it totals 23.6%. And this results in a difference of 8.4%. So that's an unaccounted for CPI increase, which was not captured in the board approved increases. The unaccounted 4.4, the unaccounted 8.4 adjustment places pressure on non-adjusted CPI revenue to make up that 8.4 discrepancy. However, grants, our second largest revenue source, do not dynamically adjust to rising costs on an annual basis, unlike fee revenue.
Yeah, and I could just add that our grant specifically, you know, from ecology, from the EPA, those have remained flat, specifically, well, of course, our core grant took a 65% cut this biennium, but until this year, it had been flat for about the past 15 years. So again, 15 years ago or so, those core grants might have paid, you know, a significant amount of provided a significant amount of our revenue, but it's decreased each year. And so we've had to, you know, again, shift more to fees, and assessments have been more important in covering those agency costs.
So what results is ultimately less available revenue to cover these ever increasing costs. If we continue to see fluctuations, like high fluctuations in the inflation rate, this may necessitate more periodic program fee adjustments we experienced this fiscal year. Moving forward, we should really aim to incorporate the measured CPI into our budgets, since CPI has a compounding effect on expenses and revenue. So, you know, a year we have a misalignment between the board approved CPI when in comparison to the official CPI index, that may have a downstream effect for us as far as our revenue not being able to catch up with expenditures. So that's it. Any questions? Randy has.
Randy, I see your hand. Is that still up from your last question?
No, it's a new one. Just a reminder, although we had a time a few years ago, you see the anomalies there. They're not an anomaly. What it was is that was a decision that was made during the planning or during the finance aspect of it. I voted no, but during the regular meeting, I voted yes. You win some, you lose some, but together we stood on it. What that was the time we looked at all of our staff and did the realignments with the comparables. So it comes off bigger than it may look for the other ones, but those were necessary realignment, not just an anomaly. You know, you have to do that within a county once in a while. We do the same thing here. They went through, they looked at everybody and all the comparables, and some of them moved up more than just the raise in order to meet the comparables. And that's what you're looking at with those numbers. I know you can't see my cursor either to point at those numbers, but I think you can see it.
Yeah, so the salary survey was done in kind of late 2022, early 2023, and we implemented that with the fiscal year 2024. When we made those salary adjustments, in addition to the, yeah.
I thought we made some also in 23 as well. I remember it being a 2-year process as we were going through, but I could be wrong.
I think this time, I remember in the past, maybe there was a stepped process, but I think the most recent, since I've been here, we just did one. All of the changes were implemented with fiscal year 2024.
Yeah, and I actually have so we increased salaries. So what you're mentioning, Randy, is actually presented in the first box. Under the line salaries with the percentage, you see 10.5%.
Yes.
Yep. That's where we implemented we conducted the salary survey in FY 2023, and we implemented those changes beginning in FY 2024. The average increase of salaries between those 2 years was 7%, with the highest increase of 20% for one individual.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions on the slide for Tyson? All right, you're gonna move on, Tyson.
Okay.
All right, well, there were a couple other things that came up last week or last month. One of them was the idea of establishing a legal contingency fund. Since we did have again, last fiscal year, we had a fairly sizable legal expense. And so I think, again, that's something Tyson and I have talked about. Our recommendation would be that we would create a named fund. I think we'd like to do this in terms of how it rolls out. Our recommendation would be to create it at some point during the next fiscal year. Perhaps we could talk about it at our October Finance Committee meeting, and then decide how much do we want in that fund. My recommendation would be, would be 75,000, 100,000, somewhere in that realm, just because of the expense that we had last fiscal year. But we would need to make that decision and then talk about then how do we fund this. One approach would be to kind of wait till the end of as we approach the end of fiscal year 2027, and then take any penalty revenue that's that's greater than what we've budgeted, which is 120,000. We could move that into our legal contingency fund as a way to seed it. And we could talk about, again, can we get there all at once? Do we move money in over a period of years just to get to our total? But that would be my recommendation on that. Tyson, anything to add? Or
no, I think it's a good idea. I think it's definitely worth discussing with the committee. I'm on board. But yeah, as far as developing those guardrails, what it's going to be used for, how much the seed money will be, where it's coming from, will definitely need to be talked about. So.
All right, awesome. Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this back up for discussion. I think it's a great idea. I like the fact that we're thinking about it now and we'll be talking about it later in the year. So it's not just being something sprung on us that we have to decide right away. Are there any questions or thoughts on this at this time? And of course, we'll bring it up again in October, but is there anything initially now? Go ahead, Randy.
Yes, and yes. And if we have it through the penalty, we know how I like to keep all that separate, but that's a one-time expenditure. It makes sense to actually utilize that money for that, especially since it's defending those things, the stuff that this comes about. If possible, at the end of the year, I'm for filling it totally. It makes more sense to me that way, because also if we don't spend it, it doesn't have to be, rebuilt up every year. Because we also, I hope you're talking about still having your budget amount with a content. Okay, yes. If you are, then if it's not used, it doesn't get used. It still stays in our investment pool. It doesn't change anything. It's just a smart action. So I would be supportive of all of the above on that.
Yeah, so we will leave the item in the budget, in the operating budget, just about to pay for the monthly what's the word?
Retainer.
The monthly retainer, thank you, and the other costs that we have. So this would just be, again, for the cases like we had, the large kind of unexpected things.
All right, great. Well, that sounds like a plan. So, is that the end of your presentation, Tyson?
That's all I have.
Perfect. So that brings us to our next item, good of the order. Are there any items folks want to talk about for good of the order?
Just that the order is good. You got some.
Yes. Agreed.
Yep. Well, I guess my comment is, as we shift to, because I think we should talk about what's the message for the full board. Because again, we will be presenting, Tyson will be presenting the draft budget to the full board. At the last board meeting, Emily, you did recommend and encourage the board to review not only the draft budget, but also the slides that we discussed last time in terms of the contingency fund history and the forecast looking out. Following that, I did reach out via email to each individual board member individually, just reminding them to look and ask if anybody had any questions, to be sure to talk to, to bring those up with me or Tyson. Haven't heard anything.
Okay.
But yes, to the extent to which the committee can help add context to the full board next hour as Tyson is giving the briefing would be helpful.
Perfect. Okay. Any questions about that? About what Jeff just shared? I'm hoping that the lack of response is indicative of a great budget that has everything answered. No one has any questions because you've done such a great job presenting the information over the last couple of months. I do have a question. Have we gotten any public comment yet since it opened on the 8th?
No.
All right.
And we did do some extra public outreach with this budget, just again, because of the fee increases. So we sent out postcards to all of our gasoline dispensing facilities who will be subject to paying the increased registration fee next year. So those postcards went out, I think, early this week. And we emailed all of the asbestos contractors about the asbestos fee increases. And so those emails went out early this week as well. So, but yeah, to date, we haven't heard anything back yet.
Perfect. Okay.
And that was about 258 gas dispensing facilities got the postcard, and about 238 asbestos contractors or general contractors got the notice in email on Monday morning.
Okay, great. Thank
So
you.
by Monday afternoon, everybody, all of those sources affected by the proposed fee increases were notified. And we opened the public comment last Friday.
Well, one clarification. So we just contacted the gasoline dispensing facilities, not the larger group of registered sources, which is, much larger group and much harder to connect with all of them. So.
Well, thank you for that additional outreach. Okay, great. So that kind of brings us to the end of that discussion. I do have an item for good of the order, and that is that the Board of County Commissioners is holding a budget meeting this morning at 10. I'll be attending that virtually just for the first part. They promised me they'll get through it really quickly, since they couldn't approve my request to move that conversation to this afternoon. So I will have to step away at the start of the meeting. And Greg, I wanted to see if you'd be willing to pitch the Finance Committee summary, or if we should change timing around so that I can be here to do that.
Whichever you like is fine, Emily. Depends what's your pleasure.
I think it'd be great if you could give the report, since I don't know quite how long it'll be until I can come back in. So if you're willing to do that, I think that'd be super helpful, and we don't have to change around the order of the agenda.
Happy to do it.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right.
And I guess maybe I'll just report the fastest ever finance committee meeting, and
Yes.
that we're totally supportive of the budget. And are there any other details people would like? I guess just a moment to think. Is there anything else that you'd like in there, Emily?
No, I think sharing that it's a record time, getting done quickly is great. I like the point that was made at the end about doing the additional outreach, during this public comment period, so I would throw that in there to kind of acknowledge the great work staff has done on that outreach process. And the interest in creating a legal contingency fund and the fact that we'll bring that up later in the year. Those are the
Yep.
things I wrote down.
Will do.
All right, thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. All right, and that brings us to adjournment. So we will be meeting again on October 14th. I'll miss you all and I hope you have a wonderful summer. I know we'll be here for ORCAA, but the early mornings will no longer be happening until October. So thanks everybody for a quick meeting and I'll see you at 10.
All right, see y'all in.
All right. See you soon.